At night, my phone vibrated like crazy. It was my ex-girlfriend constantly begging me to get back together, yearning for my forgiveness. Thinking back to how she had hurt me before, I ignored her and blocked her number. Just as I was waking up from a deep sleep in bed, I discovered my ex-girlfriend completely naked, straddling me. Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. I felt my body grow heavy, as if someone were writhing and rubbing against my waist. I opened my eyes and, unable to believe what I was seeing, rubbed my eyes again in disbelief. My ex-girlfriend was actually naked, moving on top of me. "Nina, how did you get in here?" I was shocked. Tonight, Nina seemed like she had taken the wrong medicine, first endlessly begging me to reconcile on her phone. Now, she was sitting on me, her body completely snow-white. Nina answered with a captivating, seductive look. "Freddie, don't you remember? On the first day you moved into this house, you registered my fingerprint on the door. Of course, I can come in." "Oh right, I had forgotten. This house was originally prepared for me to marry Nina in the future. She was supposed to be the mistress of this house, if not for the disgusting incident that happened over a month ago. Over a month ago, Rupert Collins became the new manager of my department. He was a greasy middle-aged man who made even men like me feel disgusted. He often used his fat, oily hands to deliberately touch the sensitive areas of other women in the company. When caught, he would show a shameless, annoying expression and wave his hand, saying, "What's wrong, comrade? Are you disgusted with me just for reporting work?" In just a few days, Rupert's behavior was condemned by everyone in my department, as everyone denounced his lewd actions. Just when all the female colleagues wanted nothing more than to stay far away from this disgusting pervert, only one person went against the tide. That was my dear girlfriend, the one I treated like a precious gem. Nina often went in and out of Rupert's office for reasons unknown to me. All my colleagues knew about my office romance with Nina. I was 1.8 meters tall, handsome, fit, and a pillar of strength in the department. Nina was also cute and sweet-looking, with skin as fair as a Barbie doll. So, whether they were male or female, young or old, my colleagues all blessed us, eagerly waiting to celebrate our wedding. When everyone noticed that Nina was always coming in and out of Rupert's office, and often walked out with a flushed face, they all looked at me with pitying eyes. Of course, I felt mixed emotions and was quite upset. As a man, I couldn't tolerate my girlfriend's behavior. So, I asked Nina, "Why are you getting so close to that greasy pervert? Don't you know he is?" Usually, when I questioned her, venting my jealousy and anger, Nina would put on a pitiful expression, her big eyes welling up with tears as she looked at me, choking back her words. I'm just trying to advance in my career. You're so outstanding, so I have to work even harder to match you." I was a soft-hearted person. Seeing her in such a pitiful and sincere state, I always chose to forgive her, believing she hadn't betrayed me at all. Until that night when I could no longer tolerate it and resolved to break up with her. I was waiting for Nina to come home, enduring a high fever of 39 degrees. It was already 1 in the morning, and she still hadn't returned. No matter how many times I called, she didn't answer. Fortunately, I had previously shared my location with her for safety. Even though I was suffering from a terrible headache due to the fever, out of worry, I went out late at night to find my girlfriend. When I arrived at the destination, I was so furious that my lungs felt like they were burning. I saw my beloved girlfriend lying on that bastard Rupert Collins' big belly. She had a grape in her mouth, and Rupert was smiling as he leaned down to kiss her lips. Nina's smile made me feel sick. I broke up with her on the spot, and later I fainted due to the fever. As a result, I ended up being taken to the hospital by a waiter, while Nina remained indifferent, indulging in romantic escapades with Rupert. At this moment, Nina was naked, enticing and teasing me. It seemed she noticed I was lost in thought. She bent down, using her soft, rosy lips to pull me back from my memories. To be honest, I still deeply loved Nina because she was my first real girlfriend. Now, faced with her devilish temptation, I ultimately succumbed to her once again. I couldn't control my love and desire for her. Nina and I passionately merged together in bed. We were both drenched in sweat, our faces flushed. I vented all the anger and dissatisfaction I had felt towards her. Afterward, Nina wrapped her arms around my neck, whispering hotly in my ear, "Freddie, let's get married." I was stunned by Nina's words. "Let's get married" was a phrase that felt so distant to my former self. Before we broke up, I didn't know how many times I had brought it up with her. But every time, Nina's response was, "Oh, I'm still young and not ready to be a mom yet." I cherished her so much that I would never force her. I would always say, "All right, when you're ready, we'll get married and then have a lovely little baby." But now, Nina King actually took the initiative to propose marriage to me, which made me doubt everything. Tonight, she was indeed acting strangely. Not only was she overly passionate in our relationship, but I also felt that she had gained weight. Or rather, I thought her belly looked bigger than before, slightly rounded. I loved her too much, and after being together for so long, I could clearly remember every part of her body. Seeing that I was silent for a long time, Nina seemed a bit anxious, as if she was afraid I would refuse. She hurriedly kissed me deeply, trying to make me lose my mind. "Freddie, do you not love me anymore? I know you have some grievances regarding what happened between me and Rupert Collins. But these days I've thought it through, and I realized that the one I love the most is still you, and you have been the best to me. Forgive my past foolishness, and let's live our lives well together from now on." Lost in the warmth of love, I unconsciously nodded in agreement. In the following days, it seemed that Nina really had turned over a new leaf. She would get up early to make me a hot breakfast, and at night, she would curl up in my arms like a little kitten while we watched TV dramas together. We were getting along happily, as if we had returned to the sweet period of our romance. I looked at her and truly believed she was preparing to transform into a virtuous wife. I also planned to move up the date for us to get our marriage certificate because ever since that night, she had been urging me almost every day to hurry up and get married. Although I didn't know why she was in such a rush, she showed no signs of the shyness and nervousness that a girl should have. Just the day before I planned to go with her to get the certificate, I changed my mind. I vowed that it was the darkest day of my life. It was cold that day. I wore a green scarf that Nina had bought for me to work. As soon as I entered the company, a girl with a high ponytail, who was incredibly sweet and full of energy, rushed up to me and exclaimed loudly, "Good morning, master. That scarf is quite unique." The girl in front of me, with dimples and cute tiger teeth, was named Alicia. I was the youngest director in the company and quite capable, so Alicia, who had just joined recently, naturally saw me as her guide at work. She respectfully called me master. I proudly picked up the green scarf and replied, "Haha, my girlfriend bought this for me. I think it's pretty nice too." As soon as I mentioned my girlfriend, Alicia's big eyes sparkled with curiosity. She nervously rubbed her hands together. "Master, regarding your girlfriend, that is, my mistress, there are some things I don't know if I should tell you." I was curious and encouraged her to speak, knowing that this silly girl would suffocate herself if she didn't. Alicia looked around, saw no one, and leaned in close to whisper in my ear, "Master, you need to be careful. I think your girlfriend is cheating again." Hearing Alicia's words, I felt a surge of anger. After all, I loved Nina deeply. Moreover, Nina and I had been very affectionate these days. I couldn't believe she was just pretending. So I quickly interrupted Alicia. "All right, stop talking. I've noticed you've been quite idle lately. Get that project proposal from last time to me today, or I'll punish you." With that, I walked into my small office, leaving Alicia pouting and looking at me with a wronged expression, arms crossed. "Master, you're so cruel." However, Alicia's words still caught my attention. After all, she was a girl who had never lied. When I got home, I tentatively asked Nina about it, but as soon as she caught on to my meaning, she slammed down her bowl and shouted, "Freddie Parker, Are you disgusted by me? Have you changed your heart? You don't love me anymore, so you're unwilling to believe me." I panicked and spent a lot of effort to calm her down. I immediately became even more convinced that Nina would not betray me again. However, that night, my steadfast heart was completely shattered, leaving no trace behind. After work that afternoon, I planned to go to the supermarket near the company to buy ingredients, intending to make a nice dinner to express my misunderstanding of Nina. After buying the groceries, I realized my car keys were still in the office. So I returned to the company to grab the keys. Just as I was happily walking back from the office, passing by Rupert Collins's office, I suddenly heard, "Ah!" A woman's voice sounded very sultry. I felt strangely that this voice was somewhat familiar, like my girlfriend's voice. So, I stopped and pressed my ear against the door to listen to what was happening inside. I heard the sounds of bodies colliding and heavy breathing. A female voice came from within, complaining, "Hey, be a little gentler, what if we get caught? Besides, I'm pregnant with your child. Aren't you afraid of hurting it?" When I heard that, my heart went cold. That was Nina's voice. She had been secretly having an affair with Rupert Collins, and she was carrying his child. Rupert Collins's cheerful voice echoed, "Don't worry, I've already been very gentle. Everyone from the company has left, and Freddie Parker has long gone too. I checked the surveillance and saw he wasn't there, so I dared to keep you here." Inside, the two scoundrels were chatting while doing something disgusting. I stood outside, listening clearly. Anger surged through me, my body trembling violently. Now I understand why Nina King came to me to reconcile. It wasn't because she had thought it through, nor did she really love me. It was because she was pregnant with Rupert Collins's illegitimate child. Rupert promised her that as long as she gave birth to the child, he would guarantee Nina a promotion and a raise, and would also give her a house. She came to me, urgently asking me to marry her, just to cover up the truth and give birth to the child. She just wanted me to take responsibility. From start to finish, I was nothing but a pathetic fool. I thought she loved me dearly like a treasured queen. Unexpectedly, she turned out to be a whore with such a shameless bastard. I almost wanted to rush in and beat them up right then and there, but I clenched my fists, my nails digging deep into my flesh, drawing blood. I had to control my anger. I couldn't just rush in and beat them up like that. That would be too easy for this pair of scoundrels. I needed to carefully plan my revenge, to double the humiliation and anger I felt. I wanted them to experience true despair. Right now, my heart was filled with hatred. What I wanted most was to ruin Nina and Rupert, this pair of scoundrels. I wanted them to never hold their heads high for the rest of their lives. I wanted them to spend the rest of their days under the disdainful gazes of everyone around them. I picked up my things and left the company. I didn't go home immediately, but instead headed to a nearby restaurant. Looking back now, I realized I really wasn't worth it. My salary wasn't low, $30,000 a month. With various benefits and year-end bonuses, plus my outstanding work abilities, I could earn $400,000 a year. So over the years, I had bought a 100-square-meter house in the suburbs. I gave Nina a home and bought her all kinds of gifts for various anniversaries. Over the years, I had been extremely frugal with myself. I had never bought a pair of shoes that cost over $100, nor had I ever gone to a restaurant to eat alone. What supported me through these tough years was my love for Nina. But now, everything had turned into an illusion, shattered completely. I walked into the restaurant, feeling sad, and immediately a cheerful waiter came over to ask me what I wanted to eat. I boldly said, "Bring me the 10 most expensive dishes in your restaurant. It doesn't matter if they're good. What matters is that they're expensive." Upon hearing this, the previously indifferent waiter instantly brightened up and responded loudly, "All right, handsome, just a moment. Enjoy some tea." The waiter enthusiastically poured me tea, deliberately leaning close to my body and giving me flirty glances. I was feeling irritated and just wanted to vent the anger inside me. If it weren't for the fact that this waitress didn't meet my standards, I might have actually considered further interactions with her tonight. Seeing that I was indifferent, the waitress left a bit disappointed. The dishes arrived, filled with delightful aromas. I ordered more drinks and got drunk alone. As I was drinking, I heard a familiar sweet voice. "Boss, bring me a plate of stir-fried leeks with lamb," and I was sitting in the innermost corner and turned to look upon hearing that voice. My heart tightened. It was Nina, that bitch with the sleazy Rupert Collins. Nina was currently linked arm in arm with Rupert, leaning like a little bird against his fat chest. I didn't reveal myself. I wanted to see what this pair of scoundrels would say behind my back. They sat down at a table by the door, still quite a distance from me. But their voices were loud enough for me to hear clearly from 7 or 8 meters away. I quietly saw Rupert, that fat pig, lewdly grabbing Nina's 2 small breasts. He chuckled. "What? Are you not satisfied with me? Order me some stir-fried leeks with lamb. Do you want me to get stronger?" Nina playfully pounded Rupert's chest with her small fists. "Of course, I'm very satisfied with you. You're much stronger than that Freddie Parker. He always treated me gently and never dared to use force. Unlike you, you're such a man. I'm just concerned about your health." Rupert was very pleased to hear this and hugged Nina tightly, kissing her passionately in public. They truly had no shame. Listening to Nina's shameful words and her worthless demeanor, I felt a wave of desolation and heartbreak. Without me, Nina wouldn't know where she would still be working as a bar hostess. How could she have such a glamorous identity and qualify to enter my company? It seems that I was indeed like Dongwa, Mr. who invited the ungrateful wolf into my home. Yes, Nina wasn't a top university graduate like me. She was just an ordinary dropout bar girl. I got to know her because I felt sorry for her. That night, I was coming home from work and passed by that bar. Seeing Nina King drunk and lying directly on the ground, she was dressed very revealingly, her legs splayed open, exposing her mysterious charms. At that moment, a man wanted to pull her up, intending to lift her into a car. I didn't understand back then, thinking this man was bullying a drunken girl. In fact, he was just picking up a girl at the bar, and everyone was tacitly aware of it. At most, after finishing, he would just toss a few bills and leave. But I was really a righteous young man at that time. I went up and sternly scolded the man, startling him. The man was already feeling guilty, thinking I was someone important to Nina. He immediately dropped her and fled. I looked at Nina lying in front of me like a dead pig. I couldn't bear to leave her there, so I had to take her back to my place. I kindly took care of her, wiped her face, and gave her some hangover soup. Finally, she woke up from her stupor. Nina looked at me in surprise, as if she was shocked by my selfless and non-lecherous behavior. We talked a lot, and when she learned that I had a good job and a bright future, her originally plain gaze instantly became fiery. In the end, she directly took off her clothes, unceremoniously pounced on me, wanting to take my body. At first, I was resistant, but she said, "Are you disgusted by me? Do you look down on me? I can do anything for you. I swear I will never go to that kind of place again." In the past, I had no choice and no love. Her affectionate eyes fixed on me seriously. But now I have it. "I love you, brother. I want to be with you." After saying that, she helped me take off my clothes, eagerly teasing my desires. Her words made it hard for me to refuse. I've always been soft-hearted. So that night, Nina took my body, tightly enveloping me with her fiery passion. In the following days, she won my heart through various warm words and actions. Just like that, I fell deeply in love with her, unable to extricate myself. So when she complained about not having the ability or qualifications to find a good job, saying she was unworthy of me and didn't want to be a housewife dragging me down, I looked at her deeply self-reproaching expression, feeling a pang of sympathy in my heart. I thought of various ways to seek help from my previous mentor, the former department manager. I was highly valued by my mentor, and seeing my desperate pleas, he eventually relented and allowed Nina King to give it a try. Nina was very happy. She had never thought that someone like her, who struggled academically, could enter a big company. At that time, seeing her joyful expression brought me happiness as well. To help her establish a foothold, I patiently improved her work skills and helped her build good relationships with her colleagues. That was how she was able to secure a decent job with good benefits in my company. But now, she has betrayed me, giving up our love to be with the new department manager, Rupert Collins. All these opportunities were actually created by me from the very beginning. In my anger, I downed an entire bottle of wine. Finally, after Nina and Rupert finished their meal, they left the restaurant. I watched their disappearing figures, my gaze growing colder and more ruthless. Nina, since you want to marry me and have your illegitimate child so badly, fine, I'll indulge you. I want you to think you are truly marrying me, but in reality you won't be. Only then will you feel the utmost pain in the end. Rupert, you dare to take what's mine, and with a scoundrel like you, I will completely tear apart your family and ruin your reputation. I returned home very late. I opened the door and stepped inside. A burst of fragrant aroma wafted over. I closed the door, and my voice startled Nina King in the kitchen. She had an apron tied around her waist and was holding a spoon as she came out from the kitchen. She looked just like a perfect girlfriend at home. With her hands on her hips, she feigned anger and said in a delicate voice, "Freddie, where have you been? You didn't even think to come home early. I've been so tired making soup for you." As I thought about how her virtuous demeanor was all an act, I couldn't help but think, you just had your hands all over another man, and now you have the nerve to say that to me. I felt a wave of nausea, but I couldn't show my disdain for her right now. I pretended to scratch my head and smiled naturally. Oh, I forgot. I ran into a friend after work, and we went out to eat. I subconsciously thought I was still single. I stepped forward, wrapped my arms around Nina's waist, and leaned in closer. It's all my fault. I forgot that I'm already back together with you, and how could I leave such a beautiful and lovely Nina at home? Nina was taken aback by my actions. After all, I had never been so sweet-talking and bold before. But now I had changed. Since she disliked my gentleness, I would show her what a man and strength truly meant. I directly lifted her with one hand. I used to play on the basketball team and could handle guys weighing 200 pounds. With Nina's petite frame, I could easily manage her. I roughly pushed her clothes aside. Her skin was as white as a freshly peeled lychee. I kissed her fiercely, regardless of her protests. I was going all out, taking charge without hesitation. Don't you like it rough? Today, I'll show you what a man is. Freddie, aren't you going to drink the soup? Why are you in such a hurry? Her breathing was noticeably rapid, and her body twitched as if electrified, both in pain and pleasure. It seemed this girl really did enjoy being dominated by a man. I felt no love for her now, only anger and a desire for revenge. I wouldn't care if she felt pain. I unleashed all my strength, like a flood breaking through a dam. Why would I want soup when I have you, my dear? Nina was so overwhelmed that she couldn't speak. But her increasingly flushed face and high-pitched moans told me everything. She was very satisfied and really liked it. I released all my pent-up anger and strength. After several hours of tumultuous passion late into the night, I finally let Nina go. She lay contentedly on top of me, looking up at me with loving eyes. Freddie, I love you so much, even more than before. Inside, I was filled with disdain. She was just a tool to me now, and I felt not an ounce of love for her. But I pretended to love her deeply, gently stroking her head like a dog, and said tenderly, Nina, let's go get our marriage license tomorrow. Nina had been waiting for this very sentence from me. After all, without marrying me, how could she openly give birth to Rupert Collins's illegitimate child? She nodded enthusiastically like she was pounding garlic, kissing me eagerly. That's great, Freddie. You're truly a man who will never disappoint me. Early in the morning, I woke up and made a sumptuous breakfast. I stared at a glass of milk in front of me, and with a determined look, I poured a packet of white powder into it. Sitting quietly on the sofa with my arms crossed, I wore an expression of resolute determination. Freddie, you're up so early. Oh, and you've made such a lavish breakfast. Nina King's curvaceous body was vaguely visible under her sheer nightgown. I smiled and went over, lifting her to sit at the table. I personally fed her the milk and food. Nina gave me a sweet look and showered me with loving kisses. I watched as she drank the entire glass of milk. I smiled with satisfaction. "Go ahead and drink up. I prepared this just for you." After finishing her breakfast and getting ready, she grabbed her bag and was ready to head out with me to get our marriage certificate. I wasn't in a hurry because I knew she wouldn't be able to leave the house. Suddenly, she clutched her stomach, her face turning pale. Gurgle. Her stomach made strange noises. Nina hurriedly dropped her bag and dashed to the bathroom. I stood outside the bathroom. Even through the door, I could hear Nina frantically running to the toilet. I couldn't help but smirk and smile slightly. This medicine really works. My old classmate didn't lie to me after all. The white powder I put in Nina's milk was something I got from an old classmate who studied traditional Chinese medicine. To be precise, it wasn't a laxative or any kind of drug. It was actually a powerful supplement. But when mixed with milk, it would cause someone to have uncontrollable diarrhea. Even if she went to the hospital, they wouldn't be able to find out she had been drugged. This is the brilliance of traditional Chinese medicine. I called out loudly through the door, "Nina, are you okay?" Nina replied with effort, "I don't know why, but I have diarrhea. I'll be fine in a bit." Once she finished, she tried to open the door. But just as she opened it halfway, she had to rush back to the toilet, barely closing the door in time. I chuckled to myself. She thought she could be fine in a moment? Dream on. Nina apologized, saying, "Freddie, I'm really not feeling well today. Can we go tomorrow instead?" I pretended to sigh regretfully. What a pity. Tomorrow is the weekend, and since we didn't make an appointment, plus I have to go on a business trip for a project I recently took on, we'll have to wait another week. I glanced at her increasingly rounded belly and casually asked, "By the way, Nina, I noticed your belly seems a bit bigger than before. Do you want me to take you to the hospital for a checkup?" Hearing my question, Nina grew even more anxious. If she waited another week, her belly would get bigger due to pregnancy, and it would definitely raise my suspicions. She didn't want that. She had to hurry and marry me. That was the safest way for her. So, squatting on the toilet, Nina said urgently, "Freddie, we have to get the certificate today. I want to be with you so much. I can't wait even a moment longer." I smiled and said okay. But how could a delicate girl like her withstand the effects of the medicine? Every time she thought she was done, just as she was about to come out, she felt the urge again and had to run back to the toilet, looking dejected. Seeing her increasingly anxious expression, I knew the moment had come. I also pretended to be anxious and said, "Nina, I have an old friend at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Why don't you give me your ID and household registration book? I can take care of it by myself." "I really want to be with you," Nina asked suspiciously. "Don't you need to be there in person to get the certificate now?" I brushed her off, saying, "Of course you need to be there, but we have a special situation. I can have them video call you to confirm that you're aware." I said it so seriously that I almost convinced myself. Moreover, Nina, who wasn't very quick-witted to begin with, was easily swayed. She was eager to get the certificate and find a backup. As soon as she heard my plan, she quickly handed me her ID and household registration book, then hurried back to the toilet. I took the ID and household registration book and stepped out. However, instead of going to the Civil Affairs Bureau, I walked towards a small alley. I found someone who could make fake documents. I had him create a fake marriage certificate for Nina King and me. I even specifically video called Nina, letting her say some grandiose words to make it seem all official, making her truly believe we were processing a marriage certificate. Finally, I got the fake marriage certificate in my hands. I smiled with satisfaction. With this, I could make Nina really think I was deceived by her. This way, she would obediently let Rupert Collins's illegitimate child grow in her belly. Just thinking about how Nina would have a big belly and discover our marriage certificate was fake, and then collapse, made me tremble with excitement. After returning home with the fake marriage certificate, Nina was simply overjoyed. She called me husband repeatedly. Her voice was sweeter than summer ice cream, intoxicating. But I knew that this woman's words were the least trustworthy. To obtain evidence of Nina and Rupert's affair, so that I could hold it against them later, I found a time to invite Rupert over to my house as a guest. When I first invited Rupert, he looked at me in surprise, his eyes filled with a mix of heat and fear. He must have known that messing with my girlfriend was immoral behavior. Moreover, he was a married man. However, after my repeated warm requests, he shyly agreed. After all, I was the director under him. It was normal to treat my superior to a home-cooked meal. I brought Rupert home, and when Nina saw Rupert behind me, she was a bit shocked, then looked at me with worry, afraid I would discover their affair. But I didn't show a hint of suspicion and warmly invited Rupert to sit down. I poured him wine and served him food. I pretended to be very happy and said, "Manager Rupert, I've already registered my marriage with Nina, and she's pregnant with my child. When I hold the wedding banquet in the future, you must come and help me gather some guests." Rupert glanced at Nina beside him. He was stifling a laugh, and his expression seemed to say I was a fool, happily unaware that I had been taken over. Rupert enthusiastically clinked glasses with me. "Of course, brother Freddie Parker, I must give you a big red envelope then, and here's wishing you 100 years of harmony in advance." I secretly cursed this pair of adulterers. "Enjoy laughing at me now, but later you won't even be able to cry." I pretended to drink a lot and fell into a drunken stupor. In reality, I was quietly observing Rupert and Nina. After Rupert called me multiple times, confirming that I was completely drunk, he finally couldn't hold back and started to get hands-on with Nina. Their faces turned red, and desire spread like fire within them. I held back my smile. I had just slipped some aphrodisiac into their drinks. Plus, I had hidden pinhole cameras all over the house to clearly capture their intimate moments in high definition. Rupert directly held Nina's head tightly and started kissing her passionately. "Don't do anything reckless. Freddie Parker is still here." Nina was clearly a bit calmer than Rupert. Rupert didn't care and called out to me again. When I didn't respond, he laughed. "Look, this guy is sleeping like a pig, he won't notice, and doing this in front of him is even more exciting and fun, right?" After saying that, Rupert finally lost control and entangled himself with Nina. Under the influence of the drug, Nina also broke through her rational defenses. The two of them acted like animals in heat, right in front of me, on the sofa on the white floor in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows. They recklessly poured out their passion and sweat. What they didn't know was that I wasn't drunk at all, and there were over a dozen pinhole cameras capturing them from all angles. It was only until Rupert left late at night that I woke from my fake sleep, watching Nina pretend to be very virtuous while bringing me hangover soup. I sneered coldly, "What a shame you're not acting." I took out those pinhole cameras and saved the videos. Looking at these high-definition videos, I shook my head and smiled. "Sigh, the female lead looks decent, but the male lead Rupert is too ugly, and his figure is too poor. He can't compare to me at all. Moreover, judging by the intensity, I was even more aggressive. Haha. Just obtaining evidence of their affair was far from my goal. I wanted to ruin these two, to destroy their families. I set my sights on Rupert's wife. After a period of surveillance, I learned a lot about Rupert Collins. He was originally a small-time thug, and if it weren't for his wife supporting him, he wouldn't have climbed to his current position. They have a child together who is 12 years old. One could say Rupert has a complete family and lives a very happy life. But he shamelessly cheats and wants to have another child outside. He is truly scum. Over the years, with money and power, Rupert began to spend less time at home. He grew tired of his wife and deliberately ignored her. His wife often went to a bar to drink out of frustration. She basically spent every night there for a while before heading home. Of course, I wouldn't miss this opportunity. I walked into the bar and immediately spotted Rupert's wife sitting in a corner. The moment I saw her, I felt even more that Rupert was a jerk. His wife was so beautiful and charming. Even a simple, ordinary black dress couldn't diminish her regal aura. The colorful lights shone on her lovely face, adding an air of mystery and allure. How could someone so beautiful not be cherished? While her husband was out chasing after other women, Rupert was truly a waste who squandered a good hand of cards. I approached her with a drink in hand. I was confident in my looks and figure. After all, many senior and junior girls at university had fallen for me. I was just a bit of a pure romantic. How could a lonely housewife sitting alone in a bar resist the charm of Freddie Parker? Indeed, when I appeared before her and struck up a conversation, the woman looked at me in surprise. "You're attracted to a woman nearing 40? Young man." I smiled gently without being greasy. "Women your age are at their most charming, and you take care of yourself so well that you look like a girl in her 20s. Under the influence of the lights and alcohol, the woman laughed at my words, clearly enchanted. I took my time, drinking and chatting with her to let her guard down. Finally, at 2 in the morning, I managed to win her over. I took her to a hotel. I didn't have to push, I just kept tempting her. A true master never takes the initiative. He only seduces, and besides, I was fully confident in my looks and charm. More importantly, I didn't want to take advantage of her. During my surveillance of Rupert, I learned that his wife was a good woman. If I hadn't deliberately seduced her, she wouldn't have come to a hotel with a stranger. Just as this intellectual woman was about to cross the line and take off my pants, I firmly held her hand and told her about my relationship and story with Nina King and Rupert. After hearing this, the woman clearly calmed down a lot. She gritted her teeth, clenched her fists, and said coldly, "You mean Rupert already has a mistress outside, and that mistress is pregnant, and that mistress is your girlfriend?" I nodded affirmatively. "Yes, I approached you not to get your body, but to help you escape from this misery and quickly sever ties with that jerk. I've calculated it. If you divorce him, the wealth you can obtain will definitely ensure that you and your child have no worries about food and clothing." I was afraid she would think I was lying, so I showed her the video of Rupert and Nina's affair. She watched it, her face turning ashen, but she was also mentally shaken. The woman trembled and took several steps back. I was worried she would fall, so I quickly held her waist to steady her. "Ma'am, you need to be strong. A person like Rupert is not worth your love. I admire you, which is why I came to advise you." The woman was stunned for a long time, but finally her expression became resolute, and her eyes sparkled. "Since that jerk treats me and my child so irresponsibly, he shouldn't blame me for being ruthless. I want him to leave with nothing." Her response satisfied me greatly. This was exactly what I wanted, to see Rupert's family fall apart. I also sent the video to her to use as evidence in court later. After discussing how to make Rupert leave with nothing, I was ready to leave. My goal had been achieved, and there was no need to stick around. But just as I opened the door halfway, this charming woman suddenly hugged my waist, teasing my limits. Her voice was as soothing as spring rain. "I'm so heartbroken and tired. We're both suffering souls. Can you indulge with me tonight?" I swiftly turned around, lifted her, and threw her onto the bed. I took off my clothes, revealing my 8-pack abs. Tonight was a night of indulgence and passion for two suffering souls. Nina's belly grew bigger by the day. She sweetly leaned on me and asked happily, "Freddie, when are we going to have our wedding?" I gently comforted her. "Soon. I will give you the most unforgettable wedding. In fact, I would make it so that she could never hold her head up high for the rest of her life." These days, I had deliberately investigated Rupert Collins' financial situation at the company. I didn't believe that someone like him wouldn't be tempted by the company's funds. Sure enough, after careful study, I found many of his accounts didn't match up. He had embezzled over $5 million from the company. With just this charge, I could make him stay in prison for 20 years. Under my direction, Rupert's wife and her lawyer initiated divorce proceedings against him. With the help of that cheating video I had, Rupert unexpectedly ended up with nothing, not taking a single penny, and his children and assets were awarded to his wife. Now, Rupert had only two things left: That was his position as a department manager in this large company and Nina King. But what he didn't know was that I would gradually strip everything from him. I intentionally invited Rupert out for drinks. He had been overwhelmed lately by his wife's divorce and losing everything. He didn't refuse my invitation. We drank heavily at a restaurant. When he was half drunk, I suddenly leaned close to his ear and said, "Manager Collins, I know your relationship with Nina is special, but there's something I have to tell you." Rupert was startled by my words, swallowing hard as he said, "What is it?" I laughed. "Actually, the child Nina is carrying is mine, not yours. I won't hold it against you for bullying my girlfriend anymore. We can still be good friends, haha." I raised my glass to drink it all in one go, but Rupert knocked my glass over, looking incredulous. "Impossible. Nina clearly told me that was my child." Seeing his angry expression, I knew I had him. I seriously pulled out my phone and opened a video. It was a video of Nina and me in bed. In the video, I asked, "Whose child is in your belly?" I felt something was off for a long time. "Don't you dare lie to me. Is it mine or not?" Nina answered, blushing and dazed. "Yes. Yes." Nina's response in the video left Rupert completely pale, his lips trembling and his eyes wide open. I smiled and said, when I heard her answer, I was still a bit skeptical, so I secretly used connections to get a check at the hospital. As a result, I found out it truly is my child, and it's a boy, haha. My words completely shattered Rupert's last line of defense. He trembled, biting his lip until it bled. "Nina King, you filthy bitch. How dare you lie to me and claim that child is mine? Trying to take advantage of me, you deadbeat." Rupert Collins stormed out after pushing the door open. I watched his frantic figure with satisfaction, a cold smile on my face as I comfortably sat in the chair. In truth, Nina hadn't lied to Rupert. That was indeed his child. It was just that I had lied just now. I had drugged Nina so she could only nod and say yes. Now, the out-of-control Rupert had no idea how he would deal with that bitch Nina. I loved to watch two stupid pigs fight to the death. I expected Rupert to give Nina a severe beating, but I didn't anticipate it would be this serious. The next day, I learned that Nina was beaten to a pulp by Rupert, her face bruised and seemingly with broken bones. Even worse, Nina had a heavy fall and suffered a miscarriage, bleeding heavily and fainting. Rupert had killed his own child with his own hands, yet he still thought it was mine. Truly left me at a loss for words. Rupert's wife was even more ruthless than I was. She directly sent the video of Rupert and Nina's affair to my company and to their friends. Now they truly had no face to walk down the street. Just as Rupert was going mad with anger at the company, the finance department and a few security guards directly handcuffed Rupert. Rupert shouted, "On what grounds are you arresting me? Even if I have personal moral issues, you have no right to arrest me." The finance department and the security guards smirked as they subdued Rupert. "You've embezzled over $5 million from the company, and you still have the nerve to say we have no right to arrest you. We're taking you straight to the judicial authorities." Rupert was taken away. I knew Rupert would never recover from this. All his assets were awarded to his wife. He was out of a job and now he would be going to prison. His life was completely ruined. I arrived at the hospital and walked into Nina's room. As soon as I arrived, Nina King immediately started crying pitifully. "Freddie, I'm sorry. I couldn't keep your child." I sneered and stepped closer, coldly touching her pale, smiling face. "You dead bitch. Are you still pretending? Do you think I don't know that child is Rupert Collins's? You two were still doing that disgusting thing in front of me. Let me tell you, you and Rupert Collins are completely finished now. Now everyone in your family and at the company knows about you and Rupert. You're like a rat crossing the street. Everyone wants to hit you." Nina was completely panicked, terrified. She hurriedly got out of bed and clung to my legs. "Freddie, please don't abandon me. You loved me so much before, right? You will forgive me, right? Besides, we're still husband and wife. I promise I'll treat you well from now on." I scoffed disdainfully, pulling out the marriage certificate from my pocket. With a rip, I swiftly tore it in half, the pieces scattering like snowflakes. Did you really think I married you? This marriage certificate is fake. Only a fool like you would believe it. I gave you too many chances before, but you've disappointed me too much. Since you refused to walk the sunny road with me, you can go suffer in hell. After saying that, I slammed the door and left, leaving Nina sobbing and filled with endless regret. Having dealt with the mess of Nina and Rupert Collins, my heart had never been so calm, feeling like I was about to take off. After distancing myself from these rotten people, my luck indeed improved a lot. Later, the newcomer Alicia, whom I managed, confessed her feelings to me. I had a good impression of this pure and lovely girl, so I agreed. We got along very happily. What surprised me even more was that Alicia was actually the daughter of my company's director. The chairman was very pleased with me, especially trusting in my work abilities. With everyone's support, I smoothly took the position of manager in my department. I had a perfect girlfriend and fulfilled my dreams of family. Moreover, I had a bright future ahead. Meanwhile, Rupert Collins was successfully sentenced to 23 years. Nina, on the other hand, slinked back to her old profession as a bar girl. But due to her miscarriage and severe blood loss, her health was very poor, and she couldn't drink much, so she ultimately couldn't even enter the bar. Her health continued to deteriorate, and her looks worsened. In the end, she could only serve old men in the alleys and streets.